Very good. Thank you very much for these questions. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. Perhaps I could give you a brief introduction to the situation here in Italy. Within the context of what's happening around the world over the last 20, 25 years, we've seen radical change. The way that we understand a company and innovation, well, these concepts have been overhauled. Previously, corporations did everything in-house, everything that related to innovation. So there was project finance, all the way up through initiatives. Now what we have seen is there's a more open approach, open innovation as a model that could be used, one that is used more by multinational companies. So they can develop things both in-house and out of house. So science parks have changed over the last few years, internationally speaking. Great changes have taken place. Technological parks were founded for the purpose of infrastructure, where the infrastructure could be developed, and then they shifted towards services for the corporations, new services that could be developed, and then other activities within these parks. And then there was support to research, for support to startup companies that were born out of these technological hubs. And then there's a new open system where we're trying to build something, to take a park and to open it up, to make an ecosystem for innovation, where we're trying to have exchanges with the outside world. This has been a big change, and a major change, and an international one at that. In Italy, we can see that there are various periods, and that can also be influenced by trends. So in the 90s, there was a specific trend, and then recently we've changed a little bit. But of course, with the economic crisis, we have been struggling to reinvent new models, differences in public investment, for example, and then it was always changes to these public investments. Well, then that can have a major effect in a country like ours. Sometimes it can be very slow to make the real change. A few years back, there was a really positive change. This open innovation concept, meaning that these parks have become much more useful. If we look at global competition indexes, we are 42nd or 43rd, so that's worse. We have seen slow growth, struggle to grow, and in the past a decree, which I call it a bubble for startups, really, that there was this legislation that was put into place that did make it easier to establish startups, and that meant more startups that were founded. But then, of course, once they have been established, they have to be able to persist, and that's been more challenging than could have been anticipated. So we need this physical aspect of the technological park where this research can be carried out and can be developed. That means there need to be tools, there need to be infrastructure in place to try to boost the growth of these innovative endeavors. So you were saying that research and development within the company has now been taken out of house and been shifted towards the technological park. Why? Because companies are trying to seek savings for their R&D, or because the model in the technological parks is a better one? Because there is a meeting point of a lot of different demands and needs, and there's a lot of exchanges of ideas, as well as the fact that the public weighs in on important subjects, including investment. When you talk about technological parks, I often immediately think of something that we're not talking just about technological parks, but the fact that there is money flowing in. So, for example, in the U.S., was funded thanks to, they funded things like Google algorithms. So there was a defense ministry grant given for the purpose of developing that algorithm. So with all of this in mind, governments are having an effect on all of this. Do you think that in Italy, the public intervention has been helpful to these technological parks? Well, I would say clearly there is investment that is being done publicly. And if we look at the percentages and compare them to averages in terms of public investment in Europe and around the world, we can see that investment is still quite low in Italy. And moreover, we can see that many companies are not investing enough. So private investment isn't up to the task. It's quite limited compared to world averages. Then we have a system and challenges to that system. More than 50% of employees that work in manufacturing work in companies that only have 50 employers or fewer, so small companies. So that is definitely an issue, and therefore aggregation would be of great importance and use. So we're trying to do that. We're trying to find a way to link up these companies for a virtual cycle with universities as well. We're looking for endorsement to try to facilitate investment. Big companies are now keen to get involved as well in this R&D, and then of course there's the startups as well. So there are small companies and then big companies and then the startups that are small and then are looking for their key to development. And then venture capital, of course. That's one that hasn't been developed enough in Italy at this time. I think we are one of the last, if we're not the second to last country in Europe in terms of venture capital for innovative companies. So there's much that could be done to improve the system here. We need to find a way to come up with these innovative ecosystems so that will make it easier for us to assist in finding access to finance, so that there is investment in projects, because if there's a project, then they need to be financed, and then we need to find a way to be able to boost that and support it. How can we boost these innovative ecosystems in Italy? That's a major challenge that we need to address. Expo, you spoke of Expo in your initial comments. Of course, Expo, it was supposed to really give birth to all innovation in Italy, wasn't it? Well, certainly we heard much said about that. And it should be a point of reference. It could be a great point of reference. So a lot of investment in innovation, and that will definitely have positive fallout throughout around the country, but of course shouldn't be just distilled down to Expo in Milan.